Can you hear me? Can everybody hear me?
Yes,
Yes, ma'am.
madam.
Your voice is audible.
Okay, fine. Uh, so we all know that to win, we have to achieve something with our unique stamp on it. And to achieve something, it starts with dreams. Dreams create desires. Desire creates determination, which ultimately leads to our destiny. Uh, we all have a dream, each one of us. I don't believe, that we can be people without dreams. And we want to be winners. So I want you to look at this picture and to write out in your chat box that do you think that these two who are dreaming will be able to achieve their dreams? If yes, why? If not, why?
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon,
Kaushal.
Kaushal Saab. Nice to see you. How are you?
I'm sorry, first session में मैं नहीं पाया था because there was some meeting going on, on that
Yeah,
last.
you told me.
चलिए. और how are you? And
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you. So we
right,
just started the
चलिए.
session, Kaushal Saab.
अच्छा, you have. Okay,
I just
fine.
started.
I'm sorry.
No,
Okay,
no
please go
problem. And I have told the group that this session is on achieving a strong desire to win. And in order to
Okay.
win, we need to have to achieve something with our stamp on it. And so we have a dream, and in the picture, the question to the group was that there are people who are sitting here and who are dreaming. But do you think that they are going to achieve their goals?
Dreams. Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
their dreams. If yes, why? And if no, why not? But my only
Acha.
problem is that I cannot see the chat box. So where do I see it from? Yeah,
Why?
Okay, I got it.
You got it. Okay.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
Yes. So I have some replies.
Yes.
No. Okay. Because you need to work towards achieving your dreams. No. Because dreams can only be achieved if there is a timeline defined with it. Yes. Somendra Suman, you've said yes. So I'd like to know from you, why did you say yes?
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Sitting and thinking about.
Yeah. I'm
Yes,
coming to that.
Somendra. Yeah.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon, sir. I would just like to start with NLP. We say, the first thing you should have in your mind, what is your soch that you will become. So first thing first, there should be something in your mind. What you say dream, we will have to use adjectives before and after the dreams. It's a daydreaming or just a dreaming, that kind of thing. But first you have to thought process. There should be a thought process in your cognitive mind. Then only you will go ahead. So it is said that if you difference between dream and planning, what we say, that dream is not written and planning is written. If you define your dream, if you are writing the process of your dream, then it becomes reality and you have to work accordingly. So only the saying that we have a dream, I will fail, I don't agree. I agree if I have a dream. Like Modi say, I would like to say, just don't dream, act upon it. But dream is the first word, you have to start from it always.
Okay. So basically, your idea was that it's the first step,
Yeah,
but not the last step.
no.
Okay. So, so we have some more pictures here. And do you think these people will achieve their dreams? And yes, and if so, why? Yes, they are working towards it. Dreams need to be realistic. Yes, they are striving for their dreams. That's right. So, dreaming may be the first step, but dreaming is not the last step. And definitely, uh, the success is not a ladder that you can climb by with your hands in your pocket, right? And action is required to achieve your goals. And there are ups and downs in life as we move towards our goals, which need to be negotiated with resilience. So, in order to win, this is the first thing that we need to keep in mind. So, what is the proven road to success? And this is based basically on the work of McClelland, who was a Harvard psychologist who worked on entrepreneurial motivation. So, what he said was that one minute, I want to reduce this. Yeah. So, that motivation is the psychological process that stimulates a person into action to achieve a desired outcome. Motivation arouses, energizes, directs, sustains, and behavior and performance. Without motivation, there can be no action and therefore no achievement. An emotionally intelligent individual not only possesses the skills for self motivation but also uses them. Now, so in this session, we will discuss how to achieve your dreams by cultivating the spirit that makes people successful. So, step one is to carve out your place by understanding and managing self. It's very important to have a deep understanding of ourselves, and after having a deep understanding of ourselves, to manage ourselves to bring out our hidden potential and become the best version of ourselves. So, what does self awareness consist of knowing? In the context of winning, it consists of knowing our goals, our strengths in achieving our goals, our weaknesses that might come in the way of achieving them. And this will help us to calibrate our thoughts, feelings, and actions with that of winners and provide direction in strengthening our spirit towards that of the winner. Now, uh, of course, the benefits of knowing our strengths are we come to know whether our goals are in the direction of our strengths or have we climbed up a wrong ladder. Otherwise, what happens is like I have a young nephew, and no matter how much we keep telling him that, you would do very well at this, or at this, but he keeps on challenging himself and wasting his energy in areas which don't really belong to him. But we never say anything because we are a very open family. But it's a huge waste of time, energy, effort, and also, uh, I mean, brings them down also from time to time. So sometimes it helps us to strengthen our strength, and sometimes it helps us to know where our strength is blocking us. Like, for instance, if I take the example of an engineer may be so good at engineering that he leaves out people. He thinks people are not important, and just his knowledge of engineering is what is going to get him ahead. But we all know that everything is executed through people. So, knowing how to get along with people is as important as our knowledge of engineering. What is the benefit of knowing our weakness? Because we come to know what blocks us, and it helps us to know how we behave when we meet with these obstacles. When things do not go as we planned, do we get disappointed, withdraw, give up on our dreams? Some call this inner demons, some call them interferences. Knowing self helps in managing self. It helps us to develop unflinching conviction in ourselves, unwavering focus, like that. All of us have heard the story of Arjun saying that, in order to achieve his goal, the only thing that he could see was the eye of the bird in the tree. Undying passion, alive, which says, keeps you alive and says, stop not till you achieve your dream, which means that we need to strengthen our drive for achievement motivation. So, there are three things. One is to develop the achievement oriented person's spirit. The core of the achievement oriented person's spirit comprises of the values and the attitudes that the person holds. These values and attitudes provide direction to the way, to the goals that they set, and the tendency to act towards the goal. Now, why is it so important? And I'm taking the example of an entrepreneur because if you really look at it in terms of role models, we can have many. But if we take general, if I take it in general, then we would say that generally an entrepreneur, a successful entrepreneur, demonstrates many of the characteristics that we are going to discuss and engage in today. So Machiavelli said that what accounts for the rise in civilization? He said it is not external resources, obviously not, because the same market, same minerals, same trade routes, same factories, same problems, they are all available to each one of us. But it is the spirit which exploits these resources. And this is the spirit which is often found in businessmen. And he called it the entrepreneurial spirit. And this is marked by a high need for achievement. And that is to achieve goals with a standard of excellence. Goals we all achieve, but is it with a standard of excellence? And what is the standard of excellence? I will tell you shortly. So, first thing is that we need to cultivate the values. So, what are the values of an entrepreneur? The values of an entrepreneur are innovativeness because the tendency to act becomes to use imagination, to take moderate risks, to enjoy freedom of thought and action, independence, to look for economic opportunities, to take initiative, outstanding performance because they believe they can change the environment, and they get satisfaction from task completion. And the fourth value which they cherish is respect for work. So you will find that for an entrepreneur, unlike many of us, um, they can get involved in any kind of work. And I remember that as a trainer, uh, coming from a public sector background, I mean, I could never imagine carrying my own study material to the classroom or carrying the, uh, you can say laptop or carrying the उस समय वो मोबाइल और पोर्टेबल वो होते थे आपके ओवर आजकल तो ओवरहेड प्रोजेक्टर्स हो गए लेकिन उस समय they were not so overhead also, but I could never imagine myself doing it. And I would see that many of these consultants who came, uh, who were running their own shows, they would carry almost anything and everything into class. So for them, I realized silently as I watched them, no work was too big or too small. And then we need to cultivate the force, the drive, the energy that makes us do outstanding performance, which gets reflected through our product, which is in competition with the standards of others, with our own standards of performance, to do something new or to make optimum utilization of resources. And this process is called achievement motivation. Now, does this spirit and strong drive to achieve get cultivated in us? Of course, there is a full program on this. My purpose in this section is not to, in 1.5 hours, to run you through the whole program of achievement motivation, but just to make you start, to help you to understand yourself in terms of the personality of an achiever. So, you need to, how would a person know until they present themselves? So, they, until a person has opportunity to reveal the way he sees things and does things, he has little basis for improvement and change. Now, in order to change, first thing I need to know, how achievement motivated am I? How strong is my urge? So, how do you measure it? McClellan said that it depends. When you ask a person, what does that person say? That what does he spend his idle time thinking about, particularly when he is not under pressure to achieve anything in particular? What do his thoughts turn to when he is by himself and not engaged in any job? So McClellan said that when you analyze the thoughts of people, it broadly falls into three categories. There are some kinds of people who will spend their time thinking about how to get the family together, how to do things, which help a person uh, to build relationships, which he called as the need for affiliation. Is it that when we are sitting alone, we are plotting and planning? How can I put this person down? इसकी गद्दी कैसे छीन लूं? इसको कैसे नीचा दिखा दूं? How can I feel more superior to this person? Then he called it the need for power. And if we spend a lot of our time thinking about how to improve what I did the previous time, he called it the need for achievement. Now, you might well say, what do thoughts have to do? I think Somendra uh, shared this in the beginning, that these thoughts arise from somewhere. From where do these thoughts arise? They arise from a need which is seated deep within our lives. Sometimes we are conscious, sometimes we are not conscious. But it is this need within us which drives us to achieve our goals. Behavior is what we see, but behind the behavior, deep inside, it comes from a need which is there within our life. So, this need, if it is the need for achievement, then it helps us to achieve goals with a standard of excellence, a long-term achievement which leads to benefit of humanity, a unique accomplishment, something which has not been achieved before. So, what I want you to do now is to look at yourself. That who is the person you see in the mirror? This is entirely for you, this exercise. So do it as honestly as you can. What goals have you pursued till now? Are they your own goals, or did you do it because you were pushed into it? What are your achievements that you're proud of? What gave you satisfaction? What did not give you satisfaction? Which projects you undertook and failed? Why did you fail? And what did you learn from these failures? And now, what are the jobs that you do eagerly? What jobs do you procrastinate? And what did you learn about your own strengths and weaknesses from these experiences? What are your aspirations now? And what do you really want to achieve? And what are your thoughts about your achievement? So, this is in three parts: your past, your present, and what you aspire for in future. And the title of the essay is Who Am I? So, although I've written 5 minutes, maybe you may take a little more than 5 minutes. And I want you to write down in your notebook an essay of about 200 words, being as honest as you can on who you are. Who are you? Imagine yourself giving a 2 minute speech on the dimensions which I have shown you, and then write down who are you. Is the task clear? So, if it's not, you can ask me a question, unmute and ask me a question. Otherwise, please start writing, and your time starts now.
Ma'am?
Huh?
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Who is this? Bhumi.
We write it.
Yes, Bhumi.
Yes, yes. Could you please, am I audible enough to you, ma'am?
Yes, yes, of course you are.
Yes. Could you please, go back to the previous slide so that, while we write our about us. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so can I continue? You can keep, thank you for sharing your stories, but you can keep it for yourself. Uh, and then I'll tell you how to analyze your story as we go on in the session. So I'm going forward. I assume you have already written.
Yes,
So,
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
okay, great. Wonderful. I didn't realize I was on mute. I was asking this question last 2 minutes. So excellence starts with setting, first of all, a goal of excellence. We have already said that. And we have defined that in achievement motivation, there are 4 criteria. That is a desire for success in competition with standards set by self, standards set by others. And the goal should be a unique goal or a long-term involvement in a project of excellence. Now, which will ultimately lead to the benefit of humanity. Then, after having said
Pardon
the,
me, ma'am. Ma'am, could you please, zoom out your screen because, you can make it full screen, kind of.
what screen?
Your screen sharing. We are able to see just the half of the screen.
Acha, like that. Now?
No, put it
No,
on presentation
no,
board,
not
ma'am.
zoom in, just the full screen. Yeah, not zooming in, but just the full screen.
Actually, if I put the full
Presenting.
screen, then I'm not able to move the screen.
Oh,
Then I'm having a problem in doing
you
that.
can,
That's why.
ma'am, you can minimize the, this panel. Uh, just a moment.
Yeah.
Are you able to, ma'am?
Can you see?
Yes, we are able to. Yes.
All right.
No, it's okay.
It's okay. Okay.
Yes.
So taking second step is taking responsibility. Once a clear goal has been set, take responsibility for achieving it. Now, this point is that everyone of us has heard this word responsibility over and over and over and over again. But today, I want to spend some time in discussing what this word responsibility entails when it comes to taking action. Because we will inevitably encounter many ups and downs in life. The problem, which I see in myself, at least I can say honestly, is that when I set a goal and move towards it, I invariably forget that the route to that goal is not going to be straight. It's going to have its ups and downs. So the first thing that happens is that I'm not prepared for what is going to come as a block. And what happens when we encounter these ups and downs? So one is, there are several reactions which are shown over here. And there are very few people who ultimately, between the goal and what they achieved, many set out, but ultimately, because we are not able to hold ourselves on through the ups and downs, we give up on our dreams or we achieve less than what we set out to aspire for. So where does the problem lie? Does the problem lie in the events, in the situations as they occur, or in the way we react? I know 100% if I ask you to fill your chat box, each one of you, you're going to tell me that it is in the way we react. But the point is that when it actually happens in our life, is our responsive action the same as our intellectual belief that we ourselves are responsible for our response? So once we are in alignment with our thought process, then our thoughts, feelings, and actions will lead us to victory. And otherwise, if you really look at it, emotions, the moment we encounter a block, the first thing that happens is we may get frightened, we may feel angry, we may feel resentful, we may feel defensive, we may feel anxious. And all of these feelings can sap our energy. Or we can feel confident, joyful, connected, challenged, invigorated, and like, it is said in the book, in the mindset, and the research that was carried out, that he said that there were some children who gleefully rubbed their hands and they said, well, I've been expecting this to happen, that this problem to come up. And they feel that their innovative and creativity buds are, sort of enlightened or lightened up. And therefore, they are still high on energy, but other people can go low on energy and can give up. So emotions, they produce an internal climate that supports peak performance. And research on how do athletes feel, how do they feel when they are performing their best, is they feel calm, challenged, engaged, focused, optimistic, and confident. This is what research has shown. And when they are feeling negative emotions, they ignite the energy that also drives performance, but in the negative direction. Frustration, impatience, anger, fear, resentment, sadness drain energy. Over time, these feelings can become so toxic, elevating the heart rate, BP, increasing muscle tension, constricting vision, and ultimately crippling performance. Now, once that happens, we lose focus and our mind becomes scattered, and energy which is not concentrated in the service of our goal can only dissipate both our actions as well as our emotions and thought processes away from the goal which we had set for ourselves. So sometimes people spend their time in managing the crisis. At other times, people start managing other people's agendas. And their focus shifts And therefore, it's important to be conscious of this process which is happening and focus ourselves back on our priorities. All of you know this diagram, which talks of urgent and important, not urgent and important, urgent and not important, and not urgent and not important, which are basically time wasters and trivial work, micromanaging, and doing gossip and a whole lot of things, worrying, which is not going to help us in achieving our goals at all. And very often in our day-to-day life, even yesterday I was saying that you come to office with one agenda, and by the end of the day, you have done everything else other than the agenda with which you had come in the morning. So, what is important is that we keep a strong eye on and a vigil on whether we are doing only 20% of the time in activities which are value creating and 80% of the time in doing non-value creating activity. This will help us to develop our internal versus external locus of control, prevent us from worrying, prevent us from being distracted, and helping us to spend time and energy, which we can influence the outcome of ours. And this decision is very much in our hands in terms of what we want to do, or we want to waste our time. You know, if I see my WhatsApp, USA में ये हो रहा है, बिहार में वो हो रहा है. I mean, things you can do nothing about. They fill all your time, and then you're busy in all that WhatsApp and video and so on and so forth. And things which are in our own control, those start getting minimized, because after all, at the end of the day, we have only those 24 hours. So things which we can influence and things which we can control, which are in our own hand, are things which help us in staying focused on our goals. Then the other thing to remember in goal achievement is not to try to do it all, and learn to say no. So face the problem and develop a problem solving approach. Take 100% responsibility of the outcome. Not even 0.001% should be attributed that this didn't happen because of this reason or because of that reason. I remember last week, I think 3 weeks back, if you remember, we had started a program, and it was an online program, and we were doing it with Maharashtra. And all of a sudden, Maharashtra had a complete breakdown and blackout. And I told myself, well, we couldn't have the program because, you know, there were these girls who were watching it were a little poor, and so they needed Wi-Fi and internet connections and things like that. But then I told myself, look, don't, you know, this has happened, fine. You never anticipated it, fine. Unexpected things happen. So what are you going to do about it now? And because we could think through the problem, you know, we could find a more creative solution. And finally, very successfully, we held the program. So develop an internal locus of control. And this internal locus of control says that you have a belief system which says that I am responsible for my failures and for my losses. Whereas external locus of control will always find a reason to blame other people, which is not very helpful. The most common example is when you're late for work, people will say that it was because of the weather, the traffic, the road construction, or any number of external factors. But people who have an internal locus of control, they are going to say that these things are going to happen. So therefore, let me build it in to my action step. When I'm late, I almost hear myself, okay, so today, what excuse will I give? And then I have to tell myself, Rekha, hello. Huh? So internal locus of control is about saying these hellos to yourself many times. And when we believe, a person who believes that success and failure is due to factors within their control, then their behavior will be guided by personal decisions and efforts, whereas we will not leave it to fate, luck, or external circumstances like a person with an external locus of control would do. So people with an internal locus of control engage in activities that will improve their situation. They emphasize striving for achievement. They work hard to develop their knowledge, skills, abilities. They're inquisitive and they try to figure out why things turned out the way that they did. Now, taking responsibility is about developing our internal locus of control. To develop internal locus of control, in turn, what do we need to do? We need to build our physical capacity. We need to build our emotional capacity, our mental capacity, and build our spiritual capacity. By building physical capacity, you may well ask me, well, what does that have to do? Think of the time when you have fallen ill and you don't feel like doing anything. You don't even feel like picking up your phone and looking at it. So therefore, in order to achieve and in order to win, first of all, we need to be physically strong. We need to be emotionally strong and resilient to look and overcome unprecedented things. And we need to think like a winner. And spiritual here does not mean spiritual in the sense of religiosity, but that in the face of anything and everything, we keep our spirits high and burning to do things. Now, building spiritual, emotional capacity, the first thing is stimulus and response. All of you know the model. So, the best thing to do is to consciously sit down, to take a deep breath, to relax all the muscles in the body, to practice softening the voice and speaking more slowly, to put yourself consciously in the shoes of the other person. And when you're in a heightened emotional state, to first of all take a complete break, listen to music, do whatever. I chant, so I would rather chant and then talk to a person so that I'm cool and I speak in a better way. Body language influences emotions. So the research showed that when people were asked to act angry, their BP, their hormone level, their muscle tension, all of it went up. When they were actually angry, the difference between the two was not much. So therefore, the research concluded that if you act as if you are going to win, by consciously creating the look outside that they want to feel inside, and you become, as Aristotle said, what you repeatedly do. So excellence is not a single act, but a habit. So therefore, they said to train yourself to act as if it is going to happen. I think some of you wrote about NLP, some of you wrote about abundance. Now, a lot of this is floating in the air, but research has shown that if you act you can build this capacity for yourself. So I'm quoting basically a research from Harvard Business Review, and the title of the article is Building Corporate Athletes. This is the reference that I have used. Then, of course, we all know that close relationships, because whenever we are emotionally disturbed, the first thing we run to is our mother, father, confidant, friend, whatever. And this brings a lot of security. So what he is talking about is that it is important to build this emotional capacity so that we feel courageous enough to face our problems. Otherwise, we give up. And then is to build our cognitive capacity, manage our time and energy, because the time is the same, but if our energy goes in wasteful activity, in wasteful emotions, in wasteful thoughts, then nothing much is going to come out of it. So one is manage emotions, second is think differently. Look, life is about the way that our internal dialogue happens. So if in a business situation you think my business didn't do well and I'm a complete failure, then the interpretation is going to be this is never going to work out. The feelings are going to be disappointed and scared, and the action will become withdrawal. So what is important is to think differently. And the way to think differently is I can't do anything right, to sometimes I do things right and sometimes I don't. And I'm totally incompetent to, I have strengths and weaknesses, and I will never get ahead in life, to, I need to look for ways to advance, right? So one question which I ask myself is, have I done everything? And I tell myself, सब कुछ तो कर लिया है. And then I tell myself, रेखा ऐसा नहीं हो सकता है. अगर प्रॉब्लम है तो कोई सॉल्यूशन है जो तुमने जिसको अभी तक टैप नहीं किया है. सो लुक मोर, सर्च मोर, talk more, look, ask people more. So change your mental map, cultivate the way an entrepreneur would see and deal with the problem, because they seldom give up. The successful ones, I'm only talking of the successful one, and develop their paradigms, which means visualize your success. And neuroscientist Ian Robertson of Trinity Dublin, author of Mind Sculpture, found that visualization can literally reprogram the neural circuitry of the brain to imagine a better circuitry of the brain, directly improving performance. And the example that the article gave was very, very inspiring. And what it spoke of was this Olympic swimmer, Wilkinson, who had broken 3 toes on her right foot, but she would sit in her cast, and until a week before the Olympics, she kept visualizing herself winning. And as a result of that spirit which she kept cultivating inside herself, she actually won the Olympics. So thinking positively builds mental muscles, increases strength, endurance, flexibility. So whenever we are hopeful, we try for more. And then this helps us to put the big rocks in place, and which to me means that Rekha, do the most difficult thing you think is most difficult, do it first and get over and done with. Don't procrastinate it, right? And do the small things which you are very comfortable with and easy with another time, or see if someone else can do it, or whether this needs to be done at all or not. So what is important is that every day we look at our daily goals, our yearly goals, and our life goals. So you can later on you can write down 3 things which you think are very important, and then begin with the end in mind, as Stephen Covey says. And the first step is to set a challenging goal with clarity, which is specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, timely. Step 2, I've said, is anticipate the conditions under which it is likely to fail or succeed. List the activities which need to be organized so that you may overcome these problems. Anticipate the barriers in each action, analyze and see where the blocks are. Are they in yourself? Are they in the environment? Then, after you have analyzed the problem, identify the solution, choose the solution, plan and implement, and this will help you to have an effective action plan towards your goal, having developed your emotional, physical, emotional, cognitive capability, and this should lead you to a burning capacity, inner strength within you, and keep reminding yourself that I'm doing this because I have a strong sense of purpose. And practice, practice, and practice. Nothing ever comes easy. So now what we are going to do is we are going to score our stories. You have to read it yourself and score it. I'm only going to share the dimensions with you, and I will leave the PPT, but you can score your stories later on, first of all, your goal. Does your story have a goal? Was your goal an activity goal, or was it an intention goal? Now, if at the end of a sentence, you have engaged in some kind of an activity, usually indicated by words which indicate want to, I wish to, I desire, I cherish, then what we say is it is an intention goal. You have the intention to do it, but there is no activity around it. So examples can be, he likes money. He likes money because it enables him to expand his business. He wants to be a businessman and he wants to set up an enterprise. You see the difference between these goal statements. Only the last one is an activity goal. Then the driving force for your goal. In your story, did you write that I wanted to achieve this because ever since I was a child, I'd been told that this is the most desirable thing to be, to become an engineer or to become a teacher because I was a girl? And or was it something that you chose of your own? So considering the various, so example would be, after considering various factors, I made up my mind to change the job. I have decided to give a new direction to my thought process. So is the driving force internal or is it compliance? That is, otherwise you have a lot of people in office also who do a work because boss has told them. So when boss tells them to do a work, they will not take initiative. They'll only do that much work as the boss has told them. And then they will teach each other, bhai, isse jana nahi karna, bas itna hi karna. Or they will go to the boss and say, boss, mera kaam nahi hai ye, mere worksheet mein sirf itna hi likha. Such people never become winners in life. Okay. When you look at the external block, when you look at the blocks of why you did not perform well, did you say you could not do this because of reasons outside yourself? Or did you say they were completely lack of resources? He failed because he was poorly prepared. I'm trying for a small scale industry, or I am in need for better managerial efficiency and organizing capacity. So lack of resources, external blocks, all these come in the way of our winning. Internal resources, such as I have the determination and courage to face adversities. I'm confident of achieving anything I want with adequate qualification and experience. No wonder he can be successful at his job. So all these are statements of locus of control, right? Then what was your approach to problem solving? If he plans well and keeps his balance, Ramesh is likely to succeed. So did you avoid the problem? Did you face the problem? What did you do to overcome the problem? So through this analysis, I want you to practice the pause, to reboot and reinvent yourself. Now, if you have these elements in your story, yeah, that is a goal with an activity, you get +1. If the driving force for setting the goal is internal, you get 1. If the blocks in goal setting are internal, you get +1. I've forgotten to write the 1. I'll make the correction when I send it to you. Is your locus control internal? Then +1. And if you have a problem solving approach, give yourself +1. And this way you will mark your essay out of 4. So see how many marks you got and where did you get stuck. Now, COVID-19 challenges. We are all startups now. Life will never be the same again. And if we are the same, then we have a good chance to not get ahead in life. We all need to rebrand ourselves to increase our personal effectiveness. So after you have read and scored your essay, I think sit down and take a good hard look at yourself and make a slide or write a page on where do I want to be and what legacy do I want to leave behind, and then submit it. Either I don't know how you submit your assignments. If you submit it to me, I'll be very happy. I can give you my email ID. Otherwise, you can submit it to ISTT or whatever. So I think you have read this over and over again. Keep reminding yourself every time that you face a problem in the midst of achieving your goal. Tough times don't last, tough people last, and achieving starts with believing in yourself and believing in others. Is that okay? So friends, this was a session on...
Ma'am, can you show some starting slides? Actually, I have missed 1 or 2 slides in the starting.
Actually, I need to... कहाँ से करूँ मैं ये? 1 second, I have to share screen. Oh yeah. Which slides did you miss?
Starting 2 or 3 slides, ma'am.
2 or 3 slides, there was nothing much. All that.
First slide, could you please go to the first slide? That was, I mean, we missed the first or second while we were listening to you.
1 minute. Actually, I am not a very computer savvy person. So 1 minute. Let me figure this out, how to show it to you.
Ma'am, are you going to share this slide over Classroom? If you will share on that
it will be on YouTube, I guess.
1 second, man, hold on.
Ma'am, you may share it on Google Classroom as well.
1 minute. Actually, now I'm not able to do it. And I don't know why I'm not able to do it.
Not a problem, ma'am. You may share it in the Google Classroom.
I'll share it. I'll share it with you. You'll have it. Basically, in the first 2-3 slides, I only said that this session is on achieving a strong desire to win. And I showed a couple of pictures and I asked that are these people the people who are going to win or not win? Is that okay? And then I asked for responses on the chat box. All right. So when I want to ask you, or rather, I want to tell you that actually this session was not on becoming effective. Today's session for you. My session for you was content versus process in experiential learning, right? So I took you through an experience of a session in which content and process was mixed to give you a live demonstration of how content is treated or could be treated. This is not the only way of treating it, but this is one of the ways of treating the subject in terms of creating an experiential learning process. So, I want you to tell me that what was the content part of what I took you through and what was the process part of what I took you through. You can, one by one, you can unmute yourselves and you can answer this question.
Ma'am?
Yeah.
Yeah, Bhumi here.
Yeah, Bhumi.
Ma'am, whenever you asked us to think about something or do an activity kind of things, wherever thought-provoking was involved, all those was the process part. And wherever you gave some examples, ideas, or where you taught the content part, I mean the exact theoretical part, that was the content part.
Yeah. So, in what way do you think I use the experiential learning cycle in order to create a process for this particular subject?
All right. So for this particular subject, you first explained to us a little bit about the content. Then you made us realize through the process, made us do an activity, where we can understand the content. I mean, and relate to it. And then you made us evaluate all those things as well, whether we are, we have understood the content or not through the process.
So I took you through the process.
Process, yes.
Huh?
That kind of experiential thing, not the content part, but the process part.
So where is the reflective object?
Hello?
Yes, ma'am. There were some internet issues. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Bhumi. Let's hear others also. Bhumi has so beautifully answered. Where are the others?
Ma'am, Priyanka this side. So,
yeah, Priyanka.
All right. So, ma'am, it was like talking about the content part. So, like all the conceptual things, like let's take the example of urgent and important matrix that you discussed, or some other content that you discussed. So that was basically the content part. But how that is linked with us, wherein we were, we ourselves were engaged to think that in this, like while you were telling this, I was thinking that in which quadrant I am lying into. So I myself was having that experience, so therein you were, asking or putting ourselves into the situation wherein we were thinking and we were coming up with our own, answers or our own set of, would say our own expectation or related things. So that was basically the experience. So the process part wherein how it can be put into the practice, that was basically the experiential learning, I would say, wherein the participants, me as a participant myself, was involved thinking that how it can be put, or what I did in the past, how I can change it. So that was basically the experiential part. So content means understanding the theory part and then putting that into the practice with the experiences also.
Good. Very good. Anyone else wants to say? Otherwise, I think the matter has been summed up from my point of view. So content in any session is the base. It refers to the subject matter, the matter to be dealt with in a speech, literary work, etc. And content goals are based on what you want the student to know and be able to do, right? Process goals focus on what the teacher will do. What do you want to teach and how will you teach it? A lot of our time goes in what I will teach, right? Rather than how I will teach. Because how I will teach is ultimately how the person will grasp. Like, I remember last time I shared a story of Shakyamuni Buddha, and a lady had gone to him with a dead baby in her hand. And she told Shakyamuni Buddha that, you are the Daskam one. And so you can, Matlab, she thought he is like God. So, she asked him to make this child alive. So Shakyamuni Buddha said that, all right, I will make the child alive, provided I'm giving you 1 week's time. And he gave her a bowl and said, you have to fill this bowl with mustard seeds, which are from a house in which no one has died so far. So after a week, the lady came back with an empty bowl. So Shakyamuni Buddha said, what happened? She said, I understood that life and death, that if there is life, there will be death. And there is no home without a death. And although I'm feeling bad, but death is a natural part of life. So this is how Shakyamuni Buddha used process. He could have told her straight away, how can, I do this? Or he could have told her this in a lecture mode. But he made her experience the process. And after that, she could understand. Like even our parents, they tell us so many times, or we tell other people, when we are cribbing about something, we say, I got a 10% salary cut, I got a 15% salary cut. So we tell them, think about all those people who don't even have any salary, who have lost their jobs, who are, you have only got a 10-15% pay cut. So when we bring them to an experience, or when someone comes and cries too much to me, I say, just go take a walk in that hospital and come back, then we'll discuss things. So process is as important as content, right? And I think now even the new education policy is recognizing this. And so therefore the ability to think, critique, write, argue, analyze are far more significant in this digital age. And they should be favored over facts. And therefore process is very important. Content and process are inextricably linked, and the question of which matters more is not the one we should be asking. Rather, we should focus on how content and process are related and in what ways they drive each other forward. And this was a very beautiful example which I had read. And this was about a lady who's written about her son, Oli, who was asked by his teacher to uh, find out who is the best baseball player in the world. And he quickly went to Google and he came up with the name and he wrote it down. But she was an educationist. And so she said that he did not have enough content knowledge to know if trout is the correct answer or what is meant by the descriptor best or how to assess value. In terms of skill, Oli had learned how to engage in an effective internet search, how to judge a site's worth, and how to compare information gleaned. In order to best answer the question he posed, he needs content and process both. So just process is not enough. We need content also. So awesome content can be created.
Of content. Content is important. And if content is the only concern, then in experiential learning, you will not be concerned about the unique needs of the individual, and too much content focus will bore people. And that's how sometimes you have great school dropouts, because their preferred style of learning is action or is experience, right? So this part, you know how to do versus what to do. In autism spectrum disorder, this how and what becomes very important, because the teachers can get too caught up in teaching children who don't establish social contact how to say the word hi, whereas the process of acknowledging or responding to another person in the environment is more important. And therefore, this autistic expert, she says that this is not just one way to greet someone. So you don't need to keep getting caught up. I have to teach this child, hi, hello, namaste karo, uncle ko good morning kari ki nahi, good evening kari ki nahi. And I say, oh, this person has already greeted me. He says, acha, मैंने तो सुना नहीं, इसने तुम्हें good evening नहीं की. I said, the person looked into my eyes and smiled. And that's a good evening or good afternoon for me. So process is as important. Sometimes we may even try to touch the feet of another person, but you know how people touch the feet, na पैरी पौना, और वो पैरी पौना आधे नी कहाँ पे नी पे ही जाके रुक जाता है. So what is important is the way that we teach. And in experiential learning, designing the way becomes very, very important in arousing the enthusiasm and exuberance, interest and curiosity of the student. Balance content and process. And how to marry content and process. So before the session, determine the desired learning outcome of the module, to equip students with latest knowledge on the subject, to make students confident to learn on their own about the subject matter. Then decide on the best experiential method depends on the subject matter, your participants' learning style and their need level. So when you're preparing for the session, methodology will flow from the objective, arrange the learning points in a logical sequence, arrange activities and experiences, and then assess the learning, allocate time for each activity, allocate time for summing up. And this is one plan which I've shown you, that you can look at the topic, the target group, the session objectives, the methodology, the indicative time for each thing that you are going to do, and then assess the learning. You can have it in various ways, taking questions, asking questions, exit tests, and write a final version of the plan, what handouts you will give, rehearse, prepare classroom settings. So content and process marrying depends very much on the objectives and your target audience. If you have a mature target audience, you don't need to focus so much on explaining every line, every word, and boring them with content that they know. But more important becomes to make them experience it and come to their own conclusions, help them to reflect, and give them a point to move forward for practicing. So in experiential learning, process therefore becomes more important than content. So if you become a good process trainer, then you can design almost any kind of session, because you know what are the right questions to ask and how to sequence the process so that people begin to either bring out the knowledge that is needed, or people begin to look within. Like, for instance, my focus in this particular session, where I told you in the beginning, was that this session is on becoming a winner. Was I deliberately didn't tell you that this session is on content versus process, because I wanted you to go through the whole cycle, and then for you yourself to distinguish and to come to the conclusion that what is the difference between content and process and how it can be treated. So that's what today's session was all about. You have any comments you want to share, you want to ask? We still have about 5 minutes to go, so we can use it for that. You want to summarize what you learned?
Ma'am, Ranjita here.
Yeah. Can you be a little louder, Ranjita?
Yes. Am I now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I came across this 5 W's and 1 H, like the 5 wives and 1 husband, where informing the content, you ask like what, why, when, where, and who, and how. H stands for how. So do you think this is a good practice, because it works for me every time for the content?
Yeah, you. If it works for you, then I guess it's fine.
Yeah, because
but it should work for your audience. See,
yeah,
a trainer
audience, yeah.
is always there for the audience. So what works, if you feel this is working well, actually a good process trainer will always have a gut feel that did my session go well or not go well. Your insights will tell you. And like, for instance, I always know nobody has to tell me. I have a sense of satisfaction that this went well or this didn't go well, or maybe I could have done this little like this. So if it works for you, then
yeah, because when I'm making the content, I always ask what is the content for, why I'm making the content for, and when I'm gonna be doing this content, where, and who the audience, like for
correct.
who doing it, and it stands for how I'm gonna be delivering it. So I find,
yeah, it's a good model, very good model.
so just wanted to know your views on that.
Reconfirm, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
For me, anything that works for my audience is good. If you feel it works well, it's good.
Yeah, thank you.
Anything else? So if you have nothing else, can we quickly recapitulate our learnings from this session? Write it in your chat box. So everyone has to write one line. What is your major takeaway from this session?